You're listening to the Confident Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Gavin, former professional photographer turned professional encourager. I'm an intuitive life and business mentor focused on strengthening courage and confidence for heart-centered creatives. These heart-centered creatives desire to make an impact and an income through sharing their heart with the world. This podcast is dedicated to helping us creatives activate more courage within ourselves so we can experience more memories, achieve more milestones, and make more money. In addition to empowering stories, this show will also include practical, actionable strategies from thought leaders, influencers, impact makers, and my own personal experience. If you are passionate about the areas of intentionally living, prioritizing passion, choosing courage, as well as some soulful business strategy, spirituality, and some self-mastery, you, my friend, are in the right place. You ready to play? Hey friends! I am so excited for this episode because it is the first of a new series I'm introducing to the podcast, which is called Intermissions, Supplements for the Soul. And this really came about because I've had this on my heart for a while where I really wanted to do some smaller episodes, some sort of like bite-sized pieces where you can just pop in, get a little bit of a mindset reset or something to think about or some sort of idea that might change your perspective. And I wanted to give it to you in a way that was like a supplement, very, sort of piggybacks off of some of the main content we have and the content we're talking about in the Confident Creative Collective on Facebook in my group. But I really just wanted to start this little on my heart messages and supplements for the soul, and an intermission between main episodes just felt so natural. So I'm super excited to jump in. And today I want to talk about how my anxiety and my obsessive thinking actually became an asset for me. And I want to share this with you because you might be experiencing this too. I hear this all the time from my clients, and I know that I experience it myself, where if I'm thinking about something that I'm not totally clear on, or I'm worried about it, or I'll give you a real example. I had a client who was talking to me the other day about how she's really she can't get out of her own way when it comes to her money. She's just obsessing about how it's going to come in and what to sell and what does she want to do. And she knows that by focusing on the parts of it that feel heavy, that feel hard, she is perpetuating that, right? Because we're always looking at our mindset in the work that I do, and we're always looking at what are the thoughts that we're thinking that's giving us the result that we're getting. And if we're thinking thoughts, that are really keeping us apart from what we want, we're actually just perpetuating that, right? So even though it feels counterintuitive, that's what's actually happening. What we focus on expands. So she was talking about, I know I'm having this obsessive thought around money, which I have totally had this experience as well. And I'm willing to bet you may have as well, where it's like, I have bills due, I have things I have to pay, I don't know how this is going to work, I don't know where it's coming from, all these things, right? So with my own anxiety with stuff like this and my own, sort of obsessive thinking, it occurred to me maybe 6 months or a year ago, I realized that I started to look at that as an asset. And what I was sharing with my client was, it's actually pretty amazing that you have the ability to obsess over things. Now, you might be saying, that's crazy, Carrie. Why are you encouraging that? And what I'm really encouraging is, it's the system that I'm encouraging. I'm not encouraging the content of the fear and the anxiety and staying in the like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. But what I am encouraging is, you already have a skill set that's built in where you have an advantage to focus on something. And the more you focus on something, the more it expands, the more you're going to get it, the more your brain's going to match your beliefs, the more you're going to experience that and manifest that into your world, right? So what I realized was, it's actually pretty simple. All I have to do is recognize I'm starting to feel these feelings that don't feel good, which is really just my brain and my body bringing to my attention that this is not the way. These are not the feelings that I want to feel. This is not in alignment. And then I get to choose What would I like to feel instead? What do I want to focus on instead? So we started talking all about how, cool, you don't want to feel this. I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know what to do. But what we do want to feel is, I know that I've done this before. I know that there are ways to get creative. I know that miracles happen every day. I know it's my thinking that creates my success, not my actions. All of these things, right? So once we started changing what we were actually obsessing over, once we started changing what we were, what energy we were bringing to the table, energy of fear and confusion and overwhelm, and we started bringing more play and more joy and more fun, and we started looking at like, oh, what is it that I do know? Well, I do know that I'm doing work that feels really good. I do know that it's helping people. I do know that I have a network of people that feel really exciting and fun to connect with, right? And so once I started shifting my own perspective, and I was sharing this with my client, where she could start shifting her perspective on, oh, I'm just shining the light on the thing that's actually making me feel bad, right? So I want to invite you to consider in this small supplement for the soul, your obsessive thinking isn't a negative thing. You just might need to think about something else, the topic, the content, the belief, whatever it is, in a different way, rather than the whole thing is bad, right? There's a difference between my thinking is bad and I'm bad, right? So I'm not good at this is very different than I'm thinking things that don't serve me, right? So I wanted to share this with you because it's something that I see all the time. Like, it's so easy to go to the place of fear and worry and how's this going to work, and looking at the quote unquote reality, which is just an illusion, right? It's a result of past thinking. So that's really good news for us because we can say, oh, right, I don't want to create more of that. I simply want to create something that feels good and feels fun. And when I follow my joy, that's where I access my greatest wisdom, my greatest teaching, my greatest, contribution, my greatest service, whatever it is. So especially as creatives, we can get in these thought loops of obsessing about our worthiness, our work, our pricing, am I good enough? All of those things. But I would love for you to just consider, can you start focusing on the things that you are feeling good about, that you do succeed at, that you have evidence of? Because we know, if you've been around me for any length of time, and if you haven't, welcome, but you will hear me say this all the time, your brain will always match your beliefs. So what do you want to be right about, right? So do you want to be right about the fact that you're in fear? Sure. Your brain does not have the ability to reject that idea on a subconscious level. Your subconscious is just like a computer program. It's just running the program. It doesn't have any kind of emotion. It doesn't know what feels good. It doesn't know what's quote unquote right or wrong. It's just executing. So when you take a conscious thought, when you have an idea and you obsess over it, your subconscious goes to work on executing that, on matching your reality with that experience. That's what it's designed to do. That's its job. It's working for us. It's really good news. But we just might need to choose a different topic of focus. So that is what is on my heart for today's intermission and supplement for the soul. I hope that it serves you. I would love to know how this lands for you. And if this was of value to you, please share it with someone that you know or leave a review on iTunes. Also, feel free to come over to the Confident Creative Collective over on Facebook, where we can continue the conversation. And I am wishing you a beautiful day. Talk to you soon, friends. Thank you so much for listening to the Confident Creative podcast. I am so psyched that I got to have this conversation, and I loved sharing it with you. If you enjoyed it, I would love for you to hit subscribe to the podcast, and it would mean the absolute world to me if you could go ahead and leave a review about what your biggest takeaway was. If you want to come over and continue the conversation, join us in my free Facebook community, the Confident Creative Collective. We'll be diving into all different conversations from the podcast, as well as some additional trainings and some inside scoop. If you want to find me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram at Keri.Gavin, KERI.GAVIN, or you can find me on Facebook. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you, and thank you for sharing this with anyone you think it resonates with. See you on the next episode.